Boom, there
we
it
go.
is. Admit, Bart's here. What's weird is we're looking at the big screen and the little screen is where the camera is.
The camera.
Hey, Bart, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I can.
Hey, Judge Ryder. He's connecting to audio.
Oh, there you go.
For Cynthia, won't you pull around here?
Yeah, sure.
Come on.
Get everybody in here.
Howdy.
Hey, mate. Well, you got a whole group there today.
Yeah, you know, you were here just not 24 hours ago.
I know, just about 24. That's about right. Oh, well. I guess I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah, what's funny is the camera's sitting here on the table, but all of us looking at the big screen up here. So, you know, we're kind of have that far off in the distant gaze going on.
There you go. There you go. Guess I'll see you in the morning about 8:20.
Yes, sir. We'll be there.
I'll be, if I'm not right there, I'll be a couple doors down at KMVL.
Oh, okay. You
I
can be
got
on radio.
I want to come so early because they wanted to do an interview about Veteran Appreciation Day at 8:05.
Well, very good.
So anyway.
It'll be an early day for you tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll start out. Well, I start off every day about 6 anyway.
Good. Who else we got on? Let's see.
Who else we gonna have on here?
Jermaine, I see you on there. I'm trying to squint. It's across the room. MHMR, welcome. It's like they're muted, so okay.
Everybody's.
I'll probably leave just a little bit early, so I want to let you know.
That's good.
Well, you know how it's been my experience that these Zoom meetings, they go a little bit quicker than in-person meetings. Which, okay, you know, that's good. It's efficient.
I think everybody gets tired of looking at a screen instead of a person.
I would agree.
Well, we can wait another minute or two and see if we have anybody else jump in.
All right.
So. And could everybody, to help with the attendance, would everybody be able to put their name in the chat box so we're able to record that? Please.
How do we get chat? Where's the chat deal on this one? Oh, this is Zoom, isn't it?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
right there.
Got it. You know, there's about 16 different platforms, whether it's Teams or Hangouts or Zoom or GoToMeeting, and they're all just a little bit different.
Just take some getting used to.
I didn't realize I was going to have to learn so many new tricks as an old dog. Just keep waiting for the treats.
We all are. We're just they're dropping and we're eating.
Right.
Something new every day. And thanks everybody for adding your name to the chat box. And I'll remind everybody again before we leave so we can make sure we get a good, accurate account of everybody. But as people are joining, I guess we can go ahead and get started with the meeting. So thank you all for jumping in. We really appreciate it. We've got some things that we'd like to share with you. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to pop in and ask. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. We did do a presentation. There we go. I don't know. Should I do two screens?
That means they can't see us now? Is that what that
I
means?
do not know. I do not know. I cannot.
Tell me something. How do I get into the chat box? I see it over there, but can't get into it.
You should be able to click on it, and it should pop up. And then at the very bottom, it says type message here, the bottom right-hand side.
How does he open it?
I remember. Yeah, I got it.
Got it? Okay, good. Because the chat box, if it's not there, you have to kind of go down to the bottom, like the start menu at the very bottom.
There we go.
I'm so glad the optical illusion on our screen shows us social distance. Madison is actually 6 feet in front of me, and I'm 6 feet behind Cynthia, so we're all on the same screen.
There we go. And so we're going to go ahead and quickly share our screen. Hopefully it works. And y'all can jump in if it doesn't and let us know. But thumbs up, can you see the screen?
It's working fine.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Okay. So, like I said, just make sure to throw your name in the attendance in the chat box so we have a good attendance record. Just a recap of our previous meeting, because we do this 4 times a year. So no, it's been a little while since our last one. The last meeting, of course, was focused on the impacts of COVID-19 and on our public transportation. And so a lot of the discussion and the concern kind of centered around the significant decrease that everyone has seen in riders. And so I know that for a lot of transportation providers, that's what they have to keep track of is the number of riders. And then that's some of the programs that's how they get paid. So there was a significant decline in that, but at least from some of the groups that we work with directly that were able to get information on the number of riders, we actually have been seeing that increase. So I know that that's really good for the providers. They also talked about fewer driver hours. So I think that was a concern with driver retention, being able to keep those that you either had volunteer or employed, with the concern for impacts of COVID, but also with fewer hours, you're not able to keep them on staff. The concerns that were also discussed, of course, related to COVID and transportation were about the increased cleaning needs, that a lot of the protocol has changed, and the increase in needs of having to clean the buses to an extent that has never had to be done before, I think was an extra challenge and a burden that was added on to our providers, in addition to the cost of those cleaning fees. Some of our providers shared that the routes had to be changed based on the number of riders and things like that. And so that was a detriment, as well as not being able to fulfill that typical need that you do have, that you're able to take care of. And I think those were the main, discussions centered around
Sounds about right.
the COVID-19 changes. I think a lot of our providers have done a really good job adjusting to these changes and just continuing to offer the services that they know are needed and that the community does rely on. And so that was good to hear, that everybody's still kind of functioning as best they can, and that ridership is now continuing to increase. So that was good. So for the gaps and needs, it was pretty much the same thing that we've discussed in the past, that were identified, but also a lot of the gaps and needs were associated with COVID and with the riders and with the drivers and things of that nature. And then in the last meeting, we also discussed a new funding source for our...
Before you go into that one, though, I want to just highlight one of the most interesting things about the gaps or the needs in our research in the last 6 months has been we need riders. What's been interesting is that, for the 20 years I've done transportation planning here in the Brazos Valley, we've never suffered for a lack of riders. And there's always been a lack of transportation,
yes,
of vehicles or drivers or funding. But good gracious, we had some systems still operating, but no riders.
Correct.
Yeah. So that was very, very different about this spring. And it was expected. I mean, it was just kind of a byproduct of reality. But anecdotally, it was just very interesting that we just didn't have the riders. That we've never faced that before. So anyway,
definitely a new challenge.
Yeah, definitely a new challenge. So okay.
And hopefully it's calming down and we're getting back to closer, I guess, to normal ridership. And that's something that we also want to hear about. If you are getting closer to your normal ridership numbers, feel free to share that with us.
Or people, do they feel safe to ride public transport?
Yeah. Are they getting back on the bus?
That's the other thing.
Do they feel comfortable with it? Are you able to continue the services that you were able to offer before COVID? Or, are you still on more of a reduced route, reduced schedule? And so those would be some interesting things we'd like to hear about, to see how that's kind of impacted ridership. So We announced the additional funding for our transportation partnership group that the BVCOG is able to work with our health resource centers across the region, and we're able to provide funding for riders. We are currently working through that right now, but we have been able to identify that additional funding source. For these riders that are able, or transportation providers that are able to provide these qualified rides, we're actually going to be able to offer them $6.25 a ride for each qualified rider. And so it's kind of a different process, but we are actively working to schedule the meetings with these groups, one-on-one, so we can kind of talk more about the program, the available resources, and the funding that you can potentially earn, and then the process that has to be followed in order to be able to get those drivers the funds. So we are excited to add that. It's not a big resource, but it's another one, and so we're hoping to be able to run through the process of that within the next couple of months and just see how that program works. And then we're hoping to get additional funding from that CSBG source.
The message, if I understand, is this the one where it's tied to the individual?
Yes.
And not to the agency?
Correct.
Okay.
And so that's where I'll have to go. We're going to provide some more resources to those providers within the next week or so to talk about, the funding source is the Community Services Block Grant. And so what their focus is providing transportation for their qualified rider. And so they have to connect that person to that payment. And so that's what we're going to have to make sure we're able to do, which our resource providers are already keeping track. So it should be a pretty easy transition. We do have to do some more forms, but we're working with both sides to try to get the forms a little more streamlined.
And this is one of those, I think, where if we just get the word out to the public
Yes.
about this, then they can be qualified to ride on any system. This is cash paid to that system on behalf of that person.
Correct.
So Bryan College Station, Buffalo, Navasota, if a person qualifies, then we can pay on behalf of that person.
Yes, if the ride that they're given is free.
Okay.
So as long as you don't charge them for the ride, you can come back to us. And if they're qualified, if they have the paperwork, if they're in their system, then they're able to pay. And so before we even got started, we were able to check some numbers, because a lot of our transportation providers provide not only transportation to our 60 plus, our seniors, but you're already providing transportation to a lot of the community members that are under 60. And this funding source can help with both, but we're going to be able to target those under 60-year-olds that we've never been able to cover before. So we're looking at that as a new potential source to be able to make sure that we're providing you with resources to help continue providing rides that you're already providing. And some of these community members that are already riding on your bus, that you're already taking places, they're already in the system. So that's good. So now we can actually start getting you guys some funding for the rides that you've already been providing. So we're looking forward to doing that, and we'll be reaching out to those transportation providers next week. But if we haven't talked about it yet, and if you do provide transportation to these individuals, and if you don't charge them, or if you want to work out some sort of agreement that we can help fund, let us know, because we're happy to add you guys to the list and figure out ways that we can get these community members funded, and then so you're able to put your funding sources into different outlets. So just let us know. And if anybody has any questions or discussion or conversation based on the previous meeting minutes, speak now. And if not, we can continue on to the presentation that we've put together for you guys. So, nope.
I thought I saw Jackie get on just a minute ago.
I think Jackie is on. Okay, so we'll just continue. Let me make sure I have. Okay, so let's continue on.
You might have to stop from time to time and check the
That's not the right
check
one.
the waiting room. See if there's anybody else.
Yeah, I can do that. Sorry guys for the technical difficulties that I'm.
Yeah, I don't think there's any there. It would show.
I think it would. Yeah, we're good.
All right. We'll make sure no
Trying to do more than one thing at one time, and I'm not very good at it. Okay, so we have. Oh, maybe we started. Oh gosh. I'm at the very end of the presentation. That's why. That's what you get for making the first slide and the last slide exactly the same. Confusion.
There we go.
So we'd like to share kind of an update. We have received a grant from TxDOT that's going to allow us to do a 5-year transportation plan update. So we're very excited about that. And so what I thought I would do is kind of go back through and remind everybody of the previous plan, because we do have one that was done a few years ago, and it's on our website, on our transportation program tab, if you will, if you want to go back and look at everything. And so I've kind of provided an outline for everyone on what the previous plan was on, but a little introduction on what we plan on doing and some of our next steps. So I'm just going to walk you through that, and again, jump in if you have any questions. So I'll go over the current plan, our proposed project, the scope of work, and what we're going to be needing from you guys in the form of support. So as you know, we do have a current plan. It was done around 2016 and 2017, but that was the 5-year plan, which I believe is up in 2021. So it is time to make sure that we take that plan and we review it, and we make sure that we provide whatever updates are needed pertaining to where our community needs are at this point. And so within that, we did a transportation inventory report. We did a comprehensive needs assessment, and then we had our overall transportation plan update. And so I think what was most important is that it was put together with the input of the community, and that's what we intend on doing again, is making sure that we have our regional planners, we have our regional providers of transportation, we have our stakeholders, and of course our citizen representatives, to make sure that we are able to gather all aspects of transportation, you know, both the needs of those who ride and the needs of those who provide. And so that's going to be a big part of our
traditional planning
input.
Process.
Yes.
Very good.
but not as traditional, because we might still have to do Zoom, which we're not looking forward to.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's going to be a little more challenging, I think, this year than it
true.
has been in the past, because we can't meet at this point in person. And so we might have to come up with some creative ways to get the information out to everybody, and then get the feedback. So be expecting maybe some surveys or some interesting changes in that. So I don't know why that's not loading. Okay, well, I did have pictures of all 3 of the plans, just the covers of them. So like I said, we have our inventory report, our needs assessment, and our coordinated transportation plan. And I'll just share quickly a little bit about each one of those. And these are our current plans. So the first one is our inventory report. And so that's the first step in that plan. It's kind of like part 1. And so what that does is it takes a comprehensive look at what our region has to offer. So we want to see exactly what transportation resources we have available. We want to see what needs we have. And then we use all of that information to help identify what gaps there are in the inventory and what's being provided. So we include a breakdown of our county profiles. So we take a look at those demographics, you know, what population we have, how many people. We look at what transportation services that each county is able to offer, and kind of compare that to the population and to the needs of the community.
Madison, do you know if we'll be able to have any new census information about this time frame for the county profiles?
I do not.
Okay,
That would be something to
might
find
need to check
out.
on that.
We do have some new demographic analysis programs, and so if we're not able to use current census data, we do have a high-level program that is able to take current information from multiple sources and then help forecast that.
Very good.
So I think at this point, you know, with what's going on with the census and the change in dates, we'll wait and see.
Okay, fair enough.
But at least that'll be a good resource for us. And if the census is open and available, then we'll take whatever we get from that.
Absolutely.
So as we always do. And so that'll be that information. So the census data, like Michael was talking about, and our data analysis program is what we're going to use for the county profiles to help us understand where we're at. And then we also look at the provider profiles. And so those profiles tell us, and we don't want to be intrusive, but we will be calling and emailing and maybe even sending a little survey. But that essentially is going to allow us to get some information from our regional transportation providers. And a lot of y'all do that. And so what we're going to be reaching out and asking about is, we want to know where your service area is, who you serve. We want to know your hours of operation, what kind of size business it is. Is it multiple employees? Do you have a smaller group of people that are volunteers? That's what we want to know. We want to know exactly like what you're providing to the community, so we can look at everything as a whole and identify, what areas that you're able to fulfill and what areas the other transportation providers can fulfill, and then that tells us what's being missed. And so I think that's why we want that information, but be on the lookout because we'll be reaching out to ask for it. So I hope no one is surprised when we want to ask all of these questions about your transportation and what you provide. But that information is all taken and put into the second plan that we develop. That's the comprehensive needs assessment. And so essentially that is where we take all the information that you've given us, and that's where we look at and determine what gaps and needs there are in the system. And so we want to see what we have and what you guys are providing, and how each of you can work together to meet the transportation needs of the region. But then if we're missing something, what is that? And so last year, we were able to identify a handful of things. And so it's always interesting year to year to see if it's the same or if it's something different. So in our previous report, the general transportation, we looked at, was there workplace provided transportation? What about fixed route, demand response, healthcare? Those were all large topics that we looked at just across general transportation. And then another thing, which is always a need and something we always discuss, and I think unfortunately will always be something, but it's funding. Is there funding sources? Where are these sources coming from? How can we find it and who needs it? And of course, with the funding, education. So is there money to provide ridership education? And so those were some identified needs and topics that were looked at in the previous plan. So we'll get to kind of compare and see if those are still the same needs, if maybe things have changed, and if so, why? I mean, maybe something's been solved, but the research will tell us. So the last part of it is the coordinated transportation plan. And so that's where we take both of the previous plans and put them together. And so this plan allows us to develop kind of a high level. So we look at the vision, we look at the mission, which we do have, I included it, but those are things that you always want to relook at from year to year. You want to make sure that they're still applicable. Are they still relevant? Is this still pertain to your community and your community's needs? And if not, then we revise it, and that's something that we do, as a group, and that's what we look at as a group. But that all that previous information is put together into this main plan. And so we've identified the needs, we've identified the gaps in the previous plan, and then here we focus on the goals. We focus on what can we do to help alleviate these needs or completely eliminate them. And so this is the plan that we work off of, for the next couple of years. And so this helps guide us in our future mission and our future meetings and what we want to talk about. But
sorry to interrupt, but is this where we put in projects, we figure out, okay, based on our needs, our goals, and it really is, I see it all as one plan, just different modules.
Yes.
Different modules. So if we can figure out, okay, where our needs are, then we've said, okay, we need X amount of buses, we need X amount of money to run X amount of routes. Yes. Then we would say, okay, we would identify that as a goal within this one, so that when money becomes available, we can show to the funder that we planned for this. This went through a process.
Yeah, and it lets us, like Michael said, show the funder that this is the public support, this is the need, and this has been identified by our region. And so having that plan allows us, to request funds, but it also allows us to work with the transportation providers. It allows us to work with the community decision makers, even if we need to do city or county level to help with some of their future plans or capital improvement projects, things like that. We can say, here, this is what the community has requested in terms of transportation. We've done the research, we've identified and analyzed, what's needed in this area, and these are some of the goals that would really benefit.
And quite frankly, I think it is what it's always been. If we don't have these documents, then we can't show up to the starting line.
Correct. Yeah, we have nothing. Because if and that's why community input and your input is so important, is so that we can make sure that not only this plan is supported by our region and our regional stakeholders, but we want to make sure that it matches with all the other existing transportation plans. So I think the more plans that share the same information and go in the same direction, I think the better it is, especially.
Well, and if nothing else, it's going to get us talking.
Yeah.
And it'll get different agencies talking to different agencies. They may not necessarily have a single rally point.
Correct. Yeah.
To have a conversation over. So I think half of what the planning process does is an intrinsic value that it just gets people visiting.
Yeah.
So it's our job to make as many chairs around that table as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially now when it's a little more complicated.
Difficult to have chairs.
There's less chairs needed.
Right.
Everybody has their own. So
the sad thing is I can't buy Cokes for everybody. I can't give you a Coke and a cookie because you're not here.
Yeah. We can have them mailed. Maybe we'll work on that for those who want to participate in the
Tips
plan
Treats will
building.
show up at 3:00 and
Yes.
give you your refreshment.
But you have to log in, or we tell them to leave. You don't get the cookies
That would work.
if you're not logging into the meeting. Yeah, we're gonna have to come up with a lot of creative, which I'm sure all of you are experiencing as well. Just creative
incentives
to have everybody come to the table. So, but that essentially is kind of the big overview of what our current plan looks like. And so kind of moving forward on that, we're ready to re-up it. And so our focus is going to be to update it, but then to also add some more elevated planning process and procedures to it to help that we're able to carry it forward a little better. So again, like what we've been talking about is how important it is to have stakeholder involvement. So we're really going to we're going to up our side of outreach and communication, and we hope that it's graciously encouraged and welcomed by the rest of you attended, because we know that this plan is not useful or productive if stakeholders aren't involved. And so if we don't hear from our transportation riders, if we don't hear from our transportation providers, if we don't hear from our elected officials, it's not going to be reflective of our community or our community's needs. And so that's what we need to be successful. And so we're going to be doing a lot of outreach, and we hope that everyone is excited to participate because we want to hear it and we want to know what you guys know, and so we can put this plan together and so it can be successful. So our scope of work, just to give you a general idea of what we're going to be doing and when. I'll try to move this a little bit. There we go. So it's going to be very similarly laid out to what we currently have. And so, you have to start with the same building blocks again to be able to understand where you are. So the same thing, the inventory report, we're going to be gathering data, we're going to be holding meetings and identifying what we have and what's available. And so that's something that we'll be doing up until probably the end of February 2021 is our goal. Once we get all that information, we're going to take it and put it in that needs assessment like we previously have, understanding what we have, what we can fulfill, and then what we don't have. So we want to really find and identify those gaps. Are they the same as last year? Are they new? Are they different? Does COVID have a big impact, or are we slowly getting back to what we've been able to provide? And so that's kind of what we want to see, what direction we're heading in. But again, what are the unmet needs? What are the inefficiencies? And so hopefully that'll be finalized and put together by August of 2021. And then the third deliverable is that final package. And so again, we're going to make sure our vision and our goals are still the same, but we're going to adjust everything based on what the current needs are. And so that's what we want to do. We want to look at that methodology we used to assess our gaps and our needs, and then, develop those goals and figure out what resources we have, what resources the community has available to help reduce or eliminate. And so that's towards the end of November. And of course, what's really important with the plan is after we complete it, is going to be the follow through. And so we want to continue to make sure that during these meetings, that after we've put all this effort and all this time and gathered all this feedback, that we're able to continue to get input. And so we want to make sure that that the plan is still relevant and that it's performing as needed. And so I think this year we want to make sure if we can take our goals and objectives a little further, we want to do that. We want to see if we can identify some key players, because again, if it's a transportation provider challenge, then it's going to be typically up to a transportation provider to be able to try to overcome this. But we want to show that we're here to support whatever the providers needs to overcome whatever challenges there are. And so that's what we want to show also is our availability and our support. And so we want to talk a little bit about some of the solutions. And so, these were some of the challenges that were identified in the previous year's reports. So we want to find if maybe instead of just specifically, looking at the transportation provider as a challenge, or just that single vehicle and where that vehicle goes, is maybe we need to look further. And I think, that's where we can play a role, because we don't provide transportation. We don't have that. We
don't have buses.
Yeah. We don't have the resources. We don't have the drivers, but we have the planners, and we have the ability to do that. And so we're hoping that this year that maybe if we don't identify some sort of route or specific, bus or van related challenge,
we're good at identifying policies.
We are.
Yeah, so we can find policies that'll work and present them to our rural communities to be able to say, these are food for thought.
Yes.
You don't want to grow into a problem. You want to avoid problems as you grow.
Yes, and so that's how we can help. So we can look at things like walkability, and are we educating our community members? Are our land development trends supporting transportation? And so that's something that we can be used as a resource for when our cities and our communities are making these policy decisions. That's how we can help, where we can do the research and we can provide resources of different ways to support the walkability. Or, can we help with outreach? Can we help with education? Can we identify, a little more in detail where those are, based on specific regions or maybe specific providers? And so that's what we want to really be able to show and support, is creating more specific and maybe regional
It's become
specific.
more of a policy-driven document.
It is. And so because that's something that we can help and we can support with. And so I think that's where we need to focus this year. Okay. And so our next steps, we would love any feedback that you have from this meeting. So if you have some ideas or suggestions for what we need to include in this project, we're just getting started. So send us an email. I mean, we want to know what you need help with, or what you think that this plan needs to encompass. If there's some things that we felt like in the previous few years it wasn't able to include. I mean, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to bring it in and to see how that can impact, the future of transportation planning.
I think one of the big things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to outreach to our rural communities, and we're going to have to engage them to the best ways to engage their citizens.
Yes.
We used to have festivals we could go to, and we used to have where people gathered, we could show up and have information, but those days are not around. So we may have to find some more clever ways to, utility bills or local radio or things like that, where we're going to have to get the word out. Once we have things for the public to react to, the first few modules of our planning work is done, I think then it's time to very much step up our outreach. So there's something for them to see, something to react to, and then likewise provide comments on.
Yes, and so that's very true. It's a different world, and it's a different type of outreach. And so, we all realize like Zoom is not the easiest outreach, and so it's not really conducive to a conversation. And so that's not a good not a great planning tool.
Well, not everybody has internet. I mean,
Correct.
they
Well,
have
that's the
bandwidth
first
to
thing.
do Zoom.
And then to be able to get on it, but then it's just the dialogue is not as easy.
Right,
And so that's what we're going to have to rethink, and we're going to have to work, like you said, with our individual communities to better understand how to create that space for that dialogue with what we have available.
And I think the next quarter, you know, till Christmas, as we develop more strategy about the planning process that begins in January, it really begins now with strategizing how that could take place. So any information the committee or others can give us
would be great.
between
Would
now
be
and then
very
is
helpful.
very much appreciated.
Yes. But we will be starting, like I said, with the inventory report. And so that's where we're going to reach out to those transportation providers to get some additional information on.
Have we introduced Cynthia? She's going to be doing a lot of this work.
We probably should. Everybody see Cynthia?
Well, I don't know if they can see that if they're not, on that presentation.
I don't know. Let me get off the presentation.
I don't know if that works.
I don't know. Stop sharing screen.
She's probably going to be doing a lot
I
of the
think that
outreach.
was most of, yes, that was it. And there we go. So this is Cynthia, and she is our new economic development and transportation planner. So we're very excited to have her, and she will be helping me with reaching out to you guys to get feedback and information and things like that.
Yep.
So if you see her email, it is not spam. Please do not block it. She'll be helping us through this process. So thank you.
I see we have a few comments in the chat bar. Is there questions?
So no.
Okay.
Nope, we're good.
It's hard to see from this angle.
It's a very small screen. And so I think that just brings us back to kind of the end of the meeting. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. We're happy to answer any questions for you guys.
Or general comments. This is kind of a roundtable section.
Yeah. And if you have anything to share of what's going on, any updates or anything like that, this is the time that we'd like to hear.
Hey, Jackie, I'm glad you're here. I thought I saw you pop in just a little while ago. I was curious. I don't know if you were in or out when I mentioned this. We saw a big decrease in ridership over the COVID, everything. Has your service been the same or not?
No, our service has increased.
Okay.
We've seen an increase in ridership. So
that's good.
That's
I mean, if you have room to handle it, but
yeah, I started to say it'd be even better if I could find drivers. That would be, that would be even better. But
yeah. Now, do they have to have? They don't have to have CDL, do they, or any kind of endorsements?
No. All of our vehicles are standard driver's license, and actually we still have that. We have one vehicle that's available for nonprofit organizations and other folks to check in and out on an MOU to be able to use that at their, but we only still, even with all of the amount of yakking that we've done about that over the years, we've only got a couple of people under an MOU.
No, I brag on you guys all the time. I think it is such an innovative service, and I'm gonna do some more. I'll step it up, and we'll see if we can't get you some more people.
Sounds good. We could use drivers, so we have managed to recruit a couple. We've managed to recruit a couple who are retired and want to just volunteer. They don't want to be paid to drive. I'm like, hey, that's even better. We could do that too.
So is it a paid position?
Yes, our drivers are a paid position, but we don't, like, when you go by the bus signs or the signs that are hanging out over at Bryan ISD and whatnot, $17, $18 an hour. I mean, we can't touch that stuff with a 10-foot pole.
No,
we start our drivers out at like $9.18 an hour, and then with COVID, we're giving them a $2 an hour hazardous duty.
Is there, do you have a job description? We can put it on our board, our job board.
Sure, yeah, I do. I'll send that over to you.
Send it to Madison or Cynthia, and then we'll get it on our list too.
Great, that'd be terrific.
Absolutely. Hey, Dan, if you're there, or Bart, I was gonna brag on you guys. Been getting a lot of good press about the RMA lately.
Well, It's not the MPO that's getting the press. It's the RMA that's getting.
RMA.
They're two different organizations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But your name was mentioned in the same breath in a lot of conversations. So I think it's great for transportation. Let's put it that way. As far as transportation news goes.
Yeah, the RMA on the 23rd of September adopted their first strategic plan. So they're moving in the right direction.
Awesome. Can we get a copy of that? Is that something that can be emailed?
Yeah, I'll send it to you as soon as we're done with this meeting.
Yeah, and just for curiosity's sake, it'd be great to take a look at it. I think it's exciting. They had reported that there was, if the bill passes, which it has support, I understand, from our senator and several representatives local, that that could bring $1 million for transportation to the region. Of course, it's the RMA board's prerogative how it gets spent, but nonetheless, it is still a source of revenue for the region, and I think that's great.
Yeah,
the region,
I think
Brazos County. Let me just specify Brazos County, but nonetheless,
right. So,
it's local.
So basically, for everybody that's on the call that doesn't know, the RMA is requested legislation to have a $10 add-on vehicle registration fee in Brazos County. That would generate about $1.6 million a year in transportation revenue. For roadway projects, they would have to follow whatever is in the MPO's Metropolitan Transportation Plan. For other modes of transportation, other than bicycle and pedestrian, they have a little bit more flexibility. So
maybe bus stops, maybe?
Actually, I don't know if she's still on the call, but Taslima and I are going out next Thursday to begin looking at permanent bus stops on Texas Avenue.
Nice.
I got one I can show you.
We'd love to host
I got one I can show you.
in our parking lot.
Please let me know as well.
We will. We'll actually help pay some of the bill for ours. We're ready to get it done.
Yeah, Cynthia and I will be out there hammering, so.
We'll do a ribbon cutting. Something.
Cookies.
And I'm not sure if everyone already knows me, but I am
Can't hear you.
Cutting
I
out.
am.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I've met everyone yet, but my name is Taslima Kemper, and I'm the Director of Planning and Development for Crossing Transit District. So I handle, the transit planning.
I'm not able to make out a word you're saying. I'm sorry. Maybe you could type it in the chat.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But I'm excited if you're excited. We're here to help.
Now?
You're breaking up, Taslima. It comes in and out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not sure. My microphone is off and on.
Which is why we need rural broadband. I just don't plug wherever I can. I'm sorry. Well, very good. I think, Dan, it sounds like there's a plan moving forward, and Taslima, you guys have it well under control. But yeah, I'm just excited. I think, it's something that's visible. If we can get bus stops in and around our region, and where appropriate, park and rides even, it gets people to know that there's that available. Something at least is available. I think a lot of folks still suffer from the fact they don't know it's there.
Yeah, and it's really funny because when I worked with transit before in Virginia, the Richmond transit system had their logo was round, so their bus stop signs were round. BTD's logo is round, so we said, hey, let's do round bus stop signs. Really stand out, have the logo, all of that stuff. Then we heard that round bus stop signs are not in the Texas Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices and therefore are not permissible.
So you do a square sign and you put a circle around it, and then you put.
So it's gonna be your rectangular sign with probably a circle inside of it. I don't know which.
Yeah, paint the edges blue so it matches the sky.
No, it'll be
Put a
that.
little
It'll be,
content into it.
if you go back to your slide presentation, it'll be the green, black, and gold.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, that's pretty distinctive. Awesome.
I think I might be speaking out of term, but
Well,
that was the last time I talked to Wendy about that.
well, we're just excited. I think again, when you can have some visible signs where people can see it, I think that's going to be helpful. And I mean signs metaphorically, not physical, but there's stuff happening. It's a good thing. Anything else, guys, going on around the region worth discussing?
One more thing, it's not really related to transit, but the MPO is working on regional access management standards that TxDOT's going to want to try to use throughout the entire district, not just in Brazos County. So,
Oh, good to know. Yeah, good to know.
It's back to do we want to do a major thoroughfare concept for all the other counties?
Right. I had floated some years ago about a hazardous cargo route map throughout our region, and we had a little bit of traction on it, but when you're a one-man shop, it's really hard. So now that there's actually some more people here, so
Here we are.
maybe we get some things done now. I don't know.
Well, we have ours. We can show you what we have for Brazos County.
I think that'd be great. The more that it's consolidated and made to look uniform, the better. It reminds me of the early days, back in about 2001, 2003 era. The GIS professionals in our region started meeting once a month for coffee. And it was really amazing to me how City of Bryan and Brazos County and Grimes County, Washington, Brenham, how all of a sudden all the base maps started to look alike. And how all the data became a little bit more uniform so that you could trade data sets with ease. And the appraisal district started looking at a few things. And, it really was a good collaboration. Although officially, I think, had we left it up to the official folks to get it done, I'm not sure it would have been done as fast. But when the little worker bees all started having coffee, good things started happening. So the more we can see each other's plans and policies, hey, common sense is common sense. It just because something works here doesn't mean it won't work there to give it a shot. So we can scratch names out and replace names if it's a good policy. So.
And then the last thing I wanted to share was that the Texas Mobility Summit was last week. So one of the big discussions was drones and also personal, what do they call it? Personal aerial devices. So they're now talking, one of the things they're talking about now is having the ability to have helicopter-like
drones that lift
vehicles land on building tops and move people around the community.
Yeah. Jetpack.
Sounds like the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I talked to some folks in a private chat room, and Jackie will appreciate this. They tried to do a regional shared use nonprofit agency transportation coordination package. So where everybody would log in and put in all of their trips, and they would distribute them based on location, and it would be provided by whoever had a vehicle in the area. And guess what they ran into, Jackie?
Problems.
Yeah, lots of problems. Like this violates my mission by doing this.
Yeah,
What?
I know. Well, we ran into that problem, didn't we, Dan?
We did.
We sure tried it, and everybody sounded like they were on board until we actually got the capability to do it, and then ended up with some people deciding that was mission creep, and they didn't want to get on the plan. Although we do have great new software now that's way more efficient than what the other software does. So keep that in mind.
You know, that's why things don't change. Just to be blunt, you got to get outside the box once in a while.
And sometimes you have to share your sandbox.
Yeah, you do.
You know, I hate to be cliche, but that's it. Yeah. Yeah. One of these days. I'm an optimistic guy. One of these days. One of these days.
Well, look, we've made tons of improvements over the past however many years, you know, I mean, one little step at a time. We've got options available today that weren't available 10 or 15 years ago. So
True that.
time, we just keep on trucking.
All righty. Anything else, guys?
Danny retired, so Danny,
What?
I
You
know.
know, I think I heard that. Yeah, dang it. Oh, he's going to be missed.
Well, that's what happens with COVID. I think people decide, oh, you know, I don't have to work and I miss my family and that's more important, and that is, you know.
It is.
But anyway, we miss Danny, but so that's, here I am.
Well, that answered my question. I guess he's not being replaced other than you've taken on his roles.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have other people. I mean, I'm not doing the mobility training. We have other people that are going out and teaching people how to ride fixed routes and how to get, you know, how to do that particular piece of it. But the meetings, I'll be more involved in again. So I miss y'all, but I haven't had a chance to meet some of you yet.
Very good. All right.
The last thing, I thought of one more thing, Michael.
Good.
Last year, the COG put together that like brochure that was 11 by 17, two-sided. I went out and I had a meeting with the folks at Baylor, Scott and White, and I shared that with them. They use that constantly. And I ran into the lady that's using it when I was at Baylor, Scott and White, and she goes, "You look familiar even though you're wearing a mask." And I said, "Yeah, we worked on that transportation program together." And she goes, "You know, since you gave me those brochures, we've had one issue since last December with trying to find somebody a ride home. One issue. That brochure fixed everything else."
Good deal.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's very kind of you to say that, Dan. I'm glad. I'm very, very much glad. We'll just have to make sure they don't run out.
Yeah, we have plenty of them since COVID. We haven't really been handing any out here. So if anybody ever does get word that people need them, we have them printed and ready to go.
Well, and we can send you the copies. You can print them yourself. You know, I mean, that's the thing too.
Yeah, what they did is they took it, since it was 11 by 17, both sides, they just copied it, and they have the both sides facing up at the information desk when you first walk in.
Nice.
So when people come in for their appointment, now that they're checking them for COVID, they say, "Do you have transportation after your appointment?" And if they say no, then they know that they need to get busy and start looking for a way to get them back.
Well, that reminds me, Cynthia, we need to update that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need updating quite frequently.
We do.
Yeah, because I think we have some private carriers on there too. Want to make sure they're still active.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
And everybody just make sure you've gone in the group chat and put your names so we can get a record of attendance. That would be greatly appreciated before we end this meeting. Just jump in there, make sure we have your name so Zoom can save it for us. And we have that everybody came, and we appreciate everybody joining. We appreciate the feedback, and we're looking forward to our transportation planning and the meetings to come, and we'll be reaching out to all of you as we go through the process. So.
You know, just a parting thought, if there's things that you would like us to look at or to research, or if you need help to find out stuff, use us.
Mm-hmm.
Call us up. We'll be happy to delve into topics and ideas if you just don't have the time. We're here to try to help as much as we can. So don't be afraid to reach out.
I'll be sending y'all that job description.
Okay, absolutely.
We'll get that posted. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
See ya.
Great week.